So I'm joined by Clint Scherf. He is the mayor candidate for the Republican Party, or that is being endorsed by the Republican Party. Is that a nonpartisan position officially, or no?
Yes, the mayor position is a nonpartisan position. All the local government is nonpartisan. I believe it was set up that way. I mean, my take is it was set up that way so you could really represent the public on both sides. So it didn't matter. It's a volunteer position as well. So volunteer with no compensation. So you are taking time out of your day, out of your life to help the community and kind of run the city of Grants Pass in the best interest of the community.
So for those of you out there that don't know who Clint Scherf is and what he's about and what experience he has to bring to this position, tell us about yourself.
Sure. I am Clint Scherf. I was actually born and raised here in Grants Pass. Kind of started in the Clover Lawn area and migrated out to Williams, Murphy, Applegate area. Went to Hidden Valley High School, graduated, and went to college. Went to Eastern Oregon, and right after college, I didn't necessarily come back here because there wasn't a job market for me to start a career. So I ended up in Arizona for about 18 years. And then in 2017, I moved back here with my family and kind of ended up with a house inside town. And it just wasn't like when I grew up. It was a little bit different, a little sketchy, a little scary. And I didn't feel comfortable. My wife didn't feel comfortable letting our kids just roam the streets like when I grew up. So I have an abundance of experience in building code, municipal code, and city ordinances, because that's kind of what I do for a career. And so I thought, okay, I can help out the city. So I decided to sign up for a position for the Urban Planning Commission, where it's a volunteer position where you kind of help developers in the cities coordinate projects and so forth, and basically interpreting the building code and the municipal code for the developers. Then in 18, 19, I ended up serving as town councilor for Ward 1, the Northwest Ward. So I got 2 years experience sitting behind the dais as a councilor. And in the interim, when that was over, I went back to the Urban Planning Commission and just kind of been sitting around watching things. So been very vested in the city and how the ongoings of everything since 2018, and I'm just not seeing it going in the last 4 years, 3.5 years, if you want to be exact. It's just not going in the right direction, and I believe I've got enough experience with my governmental experience and my business experience and my love for the city that I think I can help them out for the next 4 years. So I would definitely like to get into the position of mayor and help our community turn this Grants Pass in the right direction, because I kind of think we're going the wrong direction right now.
Okay, and so specifically, what particular issues might you be referring to? I mean, if you live in Grants Pass, I think you understand. But
yeah, if you want to get into the weeds, we're going to be talking about the homeless people. We're going to be talking about funding the public safety, which is fire and police. And we're also, one of my passions is I'm a small business owner, and I am disheartened when I drive around the city and see so many businesses, the industrial park, empty. There's just not enough going on, and I really want to push a platform of economic development, have the city get really behind trying to get some more businesses in here, trying to get some good jobs for people I'd love to get a manufacturing-based business come in here and fill up the Spalding Industrial Park, because how long has that thing been empty? And it's just sad. It's sad. So I'm kind of approaching the position from those three angles. And from the homeless part of it, I do have a lot of experience in the issue. So when I did serve on the council back in 2018-19, the lawsuit had gone through the courts and the judge had issued the injunction. So 2018 was when that injunction went into place. So I actually had 2 years of experience in dealing with how the city was going to cope with that. I was privy to some executive sessions with and had FaceTime with the legal counsel that represented us in that lawsuit. And, words from his mouth I can still are etched in my brain. And he would say, you guys are on the right path. As a city, you need to stay the course, abide by the letter of the injunction. Don't give them any more than they already have, because once you start down that road, it's a slippery slope and you can't come back. For 2 years, the council and the mayor listened to that advice. And then 2020 came around, and
if you don't mind, what was that course? Is that different than the course that we're on right now?
Yeah, I believe it is. So basically, the injunction is very simplistic. It said that the city couldn't enforce a camping regulation. So the homeless people had a right to rest in the parks from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. And that kind of devolved into what you see now. I would implore anybody, go online, you can pull up the injunction, you can read it word for word. It's only a page and a half long, it's not very big, it's not detailed. That's that.
And what's the gist of that injunction? Because I have some questions about the injunction as well.
So basically what the injunction came down because we were sued for, I won't get the legal terms correctly, but we were sued for imposing a restriction on camping within the parks, which was the enforceable part was we would ticket and fine them. So the legal injunction came through, or I think that was the result of it, but the lawsuit came through of arguing that this was unjust to the people, the homeless people, basically.
Cruel and unusual.
Yeah, charging them a fee when they couldn't pay anything. So obviously, SCOTUS has overturned that, and we are where we're at right now. I don't believe that the current local government is particularly handling this very well. I would also encourage anybody to go out to YouTube, pull up the Grants Pass City Council website, go and start looking at all the past council meetings. It's amazing because this current council and mayor haven't listened to the public for 3.5, 4 years, and they're kind of they're putting themselves in their own position. So no fault to anybody else, but I think if you actually listen to the community came out a number of times and said, we don't want a no barrier shelter in our community. I think the council and mayor tried to put it through in the last 3 years. I think maybe 4 or 5 times they've tried to put a spot through, and I probably not even right on that. It's probably like 5 or 6 times, but basically the community came out each time and said no. Yet they're still on this path to put a shelter, and there is a shelter within our community, the Gospel Rescue Mission. As we all know, there's the federal stigma on that, is the fact that the federal law says if it's religious based in any manner, that's kind of they won't qualify it, which I don't believe in, but that's what they say.
Right, and my angle on that is that government doesn't have a very good track record in fixing social issues. No. Generally speaking, and so I think a lot of this stuff should be left up to the private sector, the churches, the organizations like the Gospel Rescue Mission. I think they do a fantastic job. It may well come down to, in many cases, personal objections to the religious aspect of it. And, there's no way that I know that for a fact. You have to, you would have to examine the heart of the person making the objection. But that's the impression that I get. Despite the fact that all you heathens out in the audience don't want this, we are doing this because this is the superior thing to do.
Yeah,
somehow.
and I mean, I pull it back a little bit further. Is I strongly believe that government shouldn't be in the middle or pulling the puppet strings for social issues as such. I mean, when you bring, I'm not here to solve the whole social issue of homelessness. I'm here to protect the community And if the community doesn't want their tax dollars used for this, if the community does not want this, then as a representative of that community, I should be acting and voting and putting legislation at a local level through to protect the community.
If you build it, they will come.
Correct.
You know, I mean, this is just anything you subsidize, you get more of.
Correct.
And so it's a worldview issue. And I believe that also that there are some conflicts that come into play when you talk about the nonprofits that are handling a lot of this outreach. Nonprofit is kind of a misnomer in the respect that they do get a lot of federal grant money.
Correct.
And perhaps state grant money to administrate these outreach situations. And there are some that are on the council or in the mayor's position that are intertwined with these people.
Yes. And, it was, I think it's public record, is most of these nonprofits have to put their board of executives and all their infrastructure as public record. And it was kind of brought up to me. I didn't research it, but somebody brought it up to me that, the current mayor is sitting on at least one of the boards of one of the nonprofits.
That's what I understand. Yeah.
And I believe there's rumor that she sits on two boards. So it's a little hard as when you are a local official representing the people and you're actually, trying to govern regulations that revolve around nonprofits and their actions within the parks, specifically like some regulations they try to put forth where a nonprofit would have to come to the Parks and Rec and sign a piece of paper and give $5 to say, hey, we're going to do this. I mean, it's just like you want to go have a birthday party for your daughter. You're going to go have to get a permit in the parks so they know, if you break something, who's responsible for it and there's something. Yeah. And for just that teeny tiny bit of accountability, it was vetoed twice, and it was rather weird. And so it doesn't to me seem like that's a local government official acting in the best interest of the community.
Yes, and in the just to illustrate a little bit how this might be some sort of a conflict, the nonprofits exist because there's an issue. If you remove the issue, then there's no reason for them to be here, and because of the fact that money is being paid to them and is going to continue to be paid to them as they administrate their programs, they may not necessarily be in favor of them going away.
Well, yeah, I mean, the business model of a nonprofit, and I don't want to beat up on the nonprofits because those guys, the people that are involved, they got big hearts and their empathy is high and they're trying to do good. But the basic business model of a nonprofit is to take taxpayer resources and utilize that to help somebody in need. So if you help everybody and there's no more people in need, then there's no more need for money. So the business model for a nonprofit is a little bit flawed, but, and again, I don't want to beat up on any of these guys because they do good and they have the good intentions. But
I understand. You don't mind if I beat up on them a little bit. And it's not intentional. I believe what you say about the hearts of these people are in the right place. I believe that too. I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. However, when you subsidize something, when you make it comfortable for people and have no accountability for the position that they're in, being homeless or whatever, and there is no incentive that they feel, and I'm referring to the wolf at their door, they don't really have as much motivation as they perhaps should have to remove themselves from the circumstances they're in.
Well, exactly. And I don't believe these social issues should be directly responsible, taken care of by local government, such as the council and the mayor. The council and the mayor, the city of Grants Pass should not be funding, owning, operating a shelter, campment of any sort.
So the J Street lot, you're not down with that?
Oh, absolutely not. Yeah. No, and it's just the liability aspect on it is mind-boggling. You wouldn't even sleep at night just thinking about all that stuff. But I believe the city, local government, they should only be a conduit for federal and state resources. So they should be getting people together. They should be getting the people in need together with the people that can give, such as nonprofits and the churches and so forth. But to have the city say, we want to own and operate it, that's just scary for anybody standing there representing the city saying that. That's just scary to me.
So I would think that they would represent that they were compelled to set up this and to have a place to move the people if they were taking them out of the parks. They wanted to, they felt compelled, like they were somehow legally obligated to do this. Do you have a different point of view on that?
Oh, I actually do. So the injunction was put in place because there was no shelter for these people to go to. We'll take it all back to the beginning, because the federal government doesn't, in their eyes, see that the Gospel Rescue Mission, because it has religious undertones, it has a religious base, it doesn't qualify as a shelter to them.
Understood.
But what you have to do is, so the injunction said you can't fine them. So when you get down to the lawsuit basically was realistically around the fact that the city was imposing a ticket with a monetary fine to people that couldn't pay. That's the gist of the whole thing. That's the heart of it.
I'm not unsympathetic to that.
No, and that is true. That is true. But when it's kind of funny, because even the Daily Courier actually even posted this within their story. They did a story piece a few years ago where they went and they surveyed the parks. They talked to people in the parks. They went and they talked to the legal counsel that started the lawsuit against the city. They talked to city officials and so forth. Within this article, the legal counsel for the opposing side, the people that sued the city of Grants Pass, that legal representative said, they were asked, would you, if we put a shelter in city of Grants Pass, would you take the lawsuit away? And he blatantly, it's in print in a newspaper. No, I will not take it away. But as soon as you want to start talking and negotiating money, call me. So to me, I'm looking at it on the outside going, this guy just did this for a money grab. He does not want us to put a shelter in. They just want to impose hardships on the city and maybe walk away with a payday.
So I'm assuming that some people in city government have interpreted that now they are somehow bound to have a shelter.
I don't think they think yes and no. So my personal opinion is I believe that the local government, city officials, people working in the city are scared to death that if they don't do something, that somebody else is going to come down the pike and sue them.
Well, but there are many other cities in the state of Oregon who do not have a shelter and probably have no intention of having a shelter. Why are we different than them now?
So that's what I don't understand too. So if you go back to the lawsuit was directly related to economy of scale. Okay, so you can't charge somebody something higher than they can pay. So why is a city of 37,000 people with limited resources burdened to put all these shelters when you go, up I-5 and down I-5, and there's smaller cities, there's a little bit bigger cities that don't have anything. So because we were, in my personal opinion, have to start with that, my personal opinion is because we've been in the spotlight for 6 years, that it's put a neon sign outside on the exit to I-5 for people to come, because would you rather sleep underneath a bridge or sleep in a beautiful park? Now we go all the way up to the Supreme Court and it gets overturned. So who has the stones basically to say, okay, now we're going to start enforcing this and everybody's got to go? Like, nobody really had the gumption to do that, just because of the backlash and everything that they thought that was coming down. you would put any one of these city officials on the other side of the mic and ask them the same question, and they're not going to have any proof to say, oh, we had to do this. Legally, we had to do this. No, they were all scared that something else was coming down. And that's a lot of my opinion, but is everything that I've read and everything that I've seen and been privy to, there's no legal basis for them to be doing this.
I'm quite sure that if you were to poll people, or if they were able to walk into a voting booth where people couldn't see how they were voting on the circumstance, that most people in the city of Grants Pass would say, hell yeah, we don't want these people in the town anymore. And a distinction always needs to be drawn. I always do when I talk about this topic, that we're not talking about people genuinely in need of help. I'm totally for helping people that need to be, that need a hand up. People that are serious about changing, moving upward out of their homeless circumstance.
If I keep the topic to me representing of local government, I'm going to say I don't think we should be solving the social aspects of that. But your conversation brings a very good point that I want to get across, that I've been screaming for years. If we are advertising, whether we are doing it purposely or not purposely, to get people from outside of our community, from different states, from all over the United States, to come here and utilize our parks as homeless, quote, quote, homeless people, the resources that we're expending as a city to help those people, to house those people in our parks and so forth, you're actually taking resources away from people in our community that need it. And that's been my argument from day one. I don't want to solve the social issues whatsoever, because I don't think I can. But the fact that we are being plagued by having so many outsiders in here utilizing all of our resources. I mean, just for example, say your son, he's down and out of his luck, out of a job, blah, blah, blah. He's couch surfing, then you guys getting in a fight and you want to kick him out. He can't go to UCAN and say, I want rent assistance. He can. He has to fill out a big, giant 27-page form, and then he's going to fill out that form, and he's going to go out there, and he's going to get on a 6 to 9 month waiting list. Okay? I personally haven't done this with UCAN, but I've heard lots and lots of stories from people within the church system. I have a relative that's the pastor manager for St. Anne's Catholic Church. And this family member tells me all these stories of these people that come in here, and that they once they send them to UCAN, they come back disheartened because they can't get any assistance when they need it. But as a homeless person, you can walk into their door and say, I am experiencing homelessness. They're going to give you a free tent. They're going to give you a free sleeping bag. And I don't know if the EBT cards are left over, but they used to be able to give you an EBT card and send you on your way. Where the person that's been involved in the community most of their life and is down and out because their job resources aren't available for them or whatever, has to be on a 6 to 9 month waiting list for rent assistance. I think that's a little bit backwards, and that's kind of, if you want to say, I want to get to the root of it, that's what I want to get to. Not the root of the social aspect of it, but the root of why our resources are not being utilized for the local community.
Understood. Okay. Is there anything else that we need to handle in the homelessness issue? So basically, I guess if I want to promote the GOP slate, myself and the other council candidates that the GOP is representing and supporting, is we want to go in with kind of a conservative agenda that says, hey, we want to get back to a little more fiscal conservancy. We want to start enforcing more. We want to promote. We want to be a liaison between the federal resources, the state resources, monetary resources, and the nonprofits. We want to get them. We want to light a fire underneath them. We want to light a fire underneath the churches. We want to get people, if you're from our community and you want to help these people, we want to promote that. I don't think, again, the city should own and operate a single thing. So that's going to be my hard line right there. I don't want to own and operate a single thing that has to do with homeless people. I was watching a city council meeting, I think it was just last week, and they were talking about the cost of just running the couple of sites that
Correct.
They have, and they were talking about, well, they needed somewhere in the neighborhood, it was $440,000. I'm going to round up to $500,000. This is a preliminary figure.
Yep.
I mean, I understand how these things work. You open with your low bid and you get what you get, but then it grows into a monster that you can't control. And just for a little bit of perspective, the city of San Francisco, which is much, much larger than here, I think they were spending they spent like $1 billion on the homeless issue, and that place is still just as bad as it ever was.
Yeah, well, I believe it was the last council meeting, the council, they voted to transition. So when you look at a city budget, people really have to know this. So you look at a city budget, that there's things that are what they call earmarked. They're basically allocated, is what it means. So you can get the money comes from taxes. These taxes are either federal, they're state, or they're local. That's the only way a city is funded, exactly. We specifically use our property tax for the city of Grants Pass. It goes 100% to fund public safety, which is fire and police. Now, public safety has been shored up for the last few years because of the deficits. It has been shored up by money that was left over in our quote, quote, general fund. You got to say that word a couple times, general fund. So that's money that doesn't have as many strings on it, can be pushed around and this, that, and the other thing. So because the fire and police were growing and did have some problems in the past, and their budgets, we would go over budget. So when they went over budget, they would pull money from the general fund. So this last council meeting, the council took $325,000 from the general fund to actually push it over and earmark it for the homeless, for these encampments. So
which could have gone to public safety.
That's my point, is like, if I take myself out of the position of being a local representative for government, I'm going to think from a citizen standpoint, it's like, did you just take $325,000 from the fire and police?
Indeed.
It's questions to be asked. And then another question is, if we have to be, as a city, taking money from our general fund to support the homeless, does that mean that there's no more federal money? There's no more state money that has been allocated for these homeless people? So if we're burning through so much federal and state resources that were allocated for homeless, if we're burning through that already, that means we are overburdened as a community, because you're allocated from the state and federal level at a certain percentage. So we're not going to get as much money as San Francisco because we're not as big. We're not going to get as much money as Portland. We're going to get money on the size and scale of our community. So that means if we're burned through all of our money for the year for that's been allocated for homeless, that came from the state and federal level, then that means we are completely overburdened. So that means we are taking care of homeless more than we're taking care of our community.
So can we take care of what needs to be taken care of with public safety and all of the other functions of city government and not be financially overburdened?
At this moment in time, it's a little sketchy. I personally don't have access to the budget right now, so I don't know how things have been allocated. But if you've read anything or seen any of the council meetings over the last 3 years, I know that they've struggled with these budget issues, specifically with fire and safety. Which pushed us even to get them to pass a levy, as well as put another fee on your water and service bill.
Yes, so, I know all about that.
So that's
personal experience.
Pulling more resources from a community level.
And I'm paying the commercial rate there. I'm not paying the homeowners increase on that. I'm paying the commercial, and it's the real deal.
So, I mean, my biggest thing is I would really like to get to a point, if the community was so gracious and allowed me to serve them and allowed, these council members that we have on the conservative side to serve them, the objective is to get to get some enforcement and take the topic of homeless and push it to the side a bit. Like, work with it enough so we can push it to the side. I think the community would be thrilled if they didn't have to hear about the homeless in every other breath. And, it's a challenge, but I think there's some resources out there that we can take care of it, and we can protect our community a little bit better. And then let's get on to doing the work of the people, getting some economic growth in here, getting some businesses to come in here. Why do not we have Spalding industrial park filled?
So what would you do to change that? How do you incentivize? What power does city government have to incentivize bringing in industrial interests?
Well, first and foremost, you got to have the staff that's going to be working for the outreach program. So basically, you have to be reaching out to different states, to different areas, to get businesses to say, hey, look, this little crown jewel here in the Pacific Northwest. We got a railroad, we got an I-5 that goes right through us, we got these beautiful rivers and mountains, and we have a workforce that's ready and willing to work. So you have to have, the city should be promoting outreach, meaning basically the bare minimum is you put together a statistics manual, a big brochure, if you want to say it that rudimentary, and you're basically drop mailing it to everybody.
You got to make a sales pitch.
Yeah, you got to make a sales pitch. Then you get in here, and then the city has resources to entice them even greater. You start to use tax breaks within your property taxes. Within, I don't know if the cities of Grants Pass has done this before, but I've seen other cities that do this. Basically, you would entice a Home Depot to come in and build a building, and you say, okay, hey, for the first 5 years, you got zero property tax.
And I'm pretty sure that happened.
Yeah. It's just a teeny tiny incentive for them, and you're like, okay, hey, the infrastructure's already supplied around this industrial area here, so we can waive those SDCs, we can waive those development fees because you're going to be bringing a facility that can house 250 new jobs, something like that.
And for the people who are, responding to that with, oh, you're going to have, some crony relationship with these corporate people. You got to throw them a bone somehow, and the payback is much bigger. The return on investment is
correct.
Is worth it.
Well, and these incentives are not in perpetuity; they have a limit to them, and it's a development incentive, if you want to put it that way. It's to get the people to say, oh, I'm going to start looking at Grants Pass there because, again, they got a railroad, they got an international interstate going right through them, and they got a workforce. Okay, oh, great. I'm going to look at Gold Hill. Gold Hill's got all the same stuff, blah, blah, blah. Well, wait, Grants Pass is going to give us 5 years of tax-free. There's a little bit of butter on the bread there, so there we go. It's just a little to get them past the point. And again, these incentives that you would set forth for the businesses are not in perpetuity. They usually have a time limit. They're negotiated, and what the city's getting out of it is the job resources. So I think there's a lot that can be done. I mean, I was very dismayed when, White City, was it? They got the new Amazon distribution center? Why weren't we a candidate for that? Again, railroad, I-5. We had Spalding Industrial Park. Could have done it immediately. I mean, they wouldn't have to rezone anything. They just build the building, would be done. But again, there was different incentives, and were we even on the plate? Did we even know they were looking? That's kind of the resources the city's got to put forth. Is they've got to get their ear to the ground. They got to get some staff that's gonna be actually pimping, promoting us.
Yeah, and you could probably be working with the county on some of this stuff as well.
In the past, we've worked with So Ready, and So Ready is a great organization. But my opinion about them is they were big enough. We were the little fish in the pond because they served all of Southern Oregon. They didn't serve specific cities. They served all of Southern Oregon. So when you looked at the roster of who they were serving and who they were helping, we were one of the little fish in the pond. So unless we were screaming and jumping up and throwing our hands in the air, nobody's really going to see us. And I think it's about time that we do that. Jump up and down and put our hands in the air. Say that we're here and we're ready.
Okay. So anything else you want to hit on this here?
So basically, I guess my only one thing I want to get out to the public is if you've been upset, you've been angry, and you haven't been happy with the last 3.5, 4 years, then maybe it's time to change the leadership of Grants Pass, and we can turn it and put it in a different direction. And I've got different ideas. As a mayor, I'm kind of more of the figurehead. I'm a little bit of a leader of the group. I don't have as much judicial power as the council members do, but as a mayor, you do set the agenda, so you kind of like steer the ship is basically what it is. And I would be a cheerleader for all of the councilors that are on board to make changes. I would give ideas as many as I possibly can. And one of my biggest assets is I'm never satisfied. I always ask 6 more questions than the other guy. So if that helps you, my extra 6 questions, if it helps you think of 6 different things, we get 6 different ideas to tackle the problem, then so be it. So, and again, I have a passion for Grants Pass, and I'm not happy with the way it's been, and I think we can change it, and I believe our community is ready.
I think you're right about that. I appreciate you coming.
I thank you, sir.
Thanks, Clint.